about 15 seconds to get underway. Okay, welcome to Science 10. We're just getting underway. We've got some of your classmates here. And yeah, my name's Phil Switzer. I'm just going to get a couple things set up. I want to make sure I can see the chat messages right there. Perfect. And around me, you can see this welcome screen. This should look kind of familiar to you. Ultimately, the course has got 3 major units, if you like, a biology unit. And ultimately, it's understanding how plants, life, any form of life, whether me, whether you, whether it's a cat, works. The main part, the first part that we're looking at, and hopefully you've already gotten underway because there is an assignment tomorrow due about parts of a cell. How does life work? It's all about cells. And that's obviously not an exact picture. That's an animation, if you like, of a cell or a drawing. But cells are critical to life. Without cells, life doesn't work. What do cells do? They actually control this, chemistry. Which is amazing, right? Like if you think about it, I mean, both of these are made out of matter, right? This one right here, I just want to do a quick check in the text chat. What am I holding here? Yep, that's my left hand. What am I holding in my left hand? What do I have here in my left hand? And then this thing in my right hand. But yes, I want to check that my audio is working. A rock indeed. Kelly, correct. Chloe, exactly. A rock. Versus, this is a tomato. They're both made out of matter and yet quite different, right? And ultimately what cells do, so cells inside of you, cells inside of me, cells inside of plants, so we have the leaf here, which is an amazing, this is actually an organ, just like how your heart is an organ, a leaf is an organ. And the cells inside of this leaf control chemistry. They control chemistry. Rocks don't do that. Rocks, water. Water's great. This isn't, is Phil against water? No, water's fine. You're fine, water. Don't worry. But you're nothing like life. Like life is well because of cells. And cells ultimately are made up of matter. Like it's amazing, right? That just this kind of matter, just atoms basically bonded together. Different atoms, obviously, but a whole bunch of them, lots of carbon actually in living things, but that atoms bonded together in the right way end up making this thing called life versus, this is just a cup of water. So it's H2O, 2 hydrogens and an oxygen. Of course, that's, a single water molecule. So there's like trillions and trillions and trillions of those. Is fairly simple, right? And but yeah, that'll be chemistry. We'll start that right around the beginning of October, and then physics, and ultimately, and I was just kind of alluding to this with the group. One of the key things, won't be the only thing, but just understanding motion and understanding energy, which of course living things control chemistry by basically capturing sunlight energy, right? With the leaf. So energy is throughout in this course, learning about energy and it starts with us, with what we know, right? With living things. And of course, we all get hungry from time to time. So it's a need to take in energy, but it all starts with plants. I mean, you have to thank a plant. Thank you, plant, for coming to class as well. They do a process, well, there's cells. And not all cells in plants, because some of them, plant cells specialize, but a whole ton in the leaf. They're called the palisade cells specifically. They've got something called chloroplasts inside of them. And those chloroplasts control chemistry, control photosynthesis, can take in carbon dioxide, which is an invisible gas that you're breathing out right now. Carbon dioxide would also be released, when almost anything living burns or when fossil fuels burn. So carbon dioxide also comes out of volcanoes, but we are releasing a ton of carbon dioxide with our modern society and all of our cars and planes and trains and automobiles. But ultimately, what's really cool about plants, and they're the basis of all living things, is their ability to take carbon dioxide gas, an odorless and colorless gas, and that's a compound. It's CO2. So in other words, 1 carbon and 2 oxygens. So 2 different atoms bonded together to make a compound. Anyway, so carbon dioxide and water. So the leaf can combine those 2 things and basically make sugar, glucose and oxygen. Now there's not tons, but there's definitely, I've had some of these tomatoes out of my garden, and they definitely have sugars in them, and we know that, right? Like plants, they're just, at least the right ones, they're tasty. They're tasty. Yeah, so that's you know, just kind of want to tell you the course is all linked, right? Like understanding how cells control chemistry, and a big important thing is energy. And then of course, chemistry itself, the study of chemistry, we'll look at that in October, understanding how atoms, you know, bond with each other with similar atoms, say O2, oxygen, right? Bonds to itself, whereas hydrogen, water is H2O. You know, how does that even happen? How does that even work? And we'll learn about that. Many reactions in chemistry release a lot of energy. Right here in the physics side, I need to put energy into this to move it at all. If I want to push it across the floor, I got to put energy into it. And we can figure that out if we know how its mass. We know its mass. And it's something called gravitational potential energy. And again, this isn't until November when we're studying this, but yeah, I've got that over my shoulder here. Gravitational potential energy, if I put in energy and lift it up, there is going to be potential energy, like potential for like my toe being hurt, which I'm not going to drop it. Don't worry, toe. My toes just about ran away, so they were scared. All righty. So yeah. So let's begin with our first little slide here and just do some notes together. And let's get this party started. I'm going to share my screen. Go right here. Clickety click, and the screen I want right there. And we'll then look at our Moodle course as well. But I want to first just start with getting some notes together with each other. But of course, you've all know well or should know well about our Moodle course, which I'll talk about in a moment. But let's do some notes together. Let's talk about this course. So a key thing to success, make sure you've got a set time that you work at the course each day. Make sure you've got a notebook. Make sure you've got a pen. And let's begin with, this is our title, Science 10. And it is still August. I made a little error and called this September, but hey, that happens. So August, that's supposed to be a U, indeed. August 31st. Okay, so what's the course all about? Ultimately, first unit, we're going to be doing biology. And yeah, write this down with me. It's good practice, especially with the teaching videos that I've got for the course, that you not just watch them, that you're actively taking notes, hitting pause, etc. Okay, so we actually start with what's called Unit 4 because we're working off of a textbook basically. So you might kind of, why don't we just call it Unit 1? But hey, so Unit 4 and 5, there's basically a couple components of the textbook. Unit 4 is all about life, ultimately. Life, and of course, what makes life work? In one word, put that right down, put that one word right beside it here. So life, and I'll put a little plus sign meaning and. What makes all living things work? Feel free to shoot that in the text chat. You might be taking notes, so don't worry. It's, does Phil want me to take notes or type in the text chat? Whatever you're comfortable with. You can also just shout it out on the audio. But yeah, life and yeah, they're really small. And if I use a microscope, a powerful enough one, I can see them. All living things are made up of them. Oh yeah, cells, right? Cells. Unit 5, my plant. I got a whole plant here, okay, right? So obviously there's different structures, so there's different cell types, specialization. This is critical not only for this course, but Bio 20, Bio 30. Many of our students at Norquest are headed off into healthcare, especially because we've got one of the world's, literally one of the world's best LPN programs at Norquest College. So learning about specialized cells, because it's a critical understanding of how human beings work, and of course, being in healthcare, that's helpful. But we study in Unit 5 in plants, but you can transfer, because a lot of what we learn about plants, the basic science transfers over to humans or anything else for that matter. So that's the first part. That's basically September. Then October and pretty well November, chemistry. So Unit 1, okay, now we suddenly do Unit 1. Matter, all matter is made up of. Oh, and thanks, Miriam. I see you sent the cell answer. So again, ideally taking notes with me, but if you have a moment on your keyboard, all matter is made up of. What the heck? Like obviously all kinds of different stuff. Actually not, right? Like I mean, especially if you burn toast, if you've seen a burnt, like hot dog or something, or like you're out at a forest fire, which hopefully you never are. And you saw like a burnt up animal, what color? They would all kind of be the same when living stuff gets burnt up, right? It's black, right? Carbon atoms. All matter is made up of atoms, and of course those atoms mix and match. Some of them like to bond, some of them don't. It's kind of interesting, but that's key. What we're going to be learning here is how atoms. And definitely write this down and think about this, because this is also cool. A secret to science is being just curious. I mean, how atoms form bonds? Like how the heck does that happen? Because they do form bonds to create new substances. Glad that chemistry works this way, because if it didn't, there'd be nothing. There'd be nothing. Luckily, it does work this way. But, how does it work? We'll learn about that. And, sometimes we also break bonds, right? So right here, just a little spark. And as long as there's some oxygen and then something called butane, which is like propane or methane, it's a fossil fuel. But ultimately, it's something that can combust, can burn very well. And that's, of course, also a key part, literally, of the first unit and the second unit in chemistry. So it's not like we don't talk about this in the first unit, but chemical reactions. Now, this is the link back to biology, to what we're going to be studying today, and you've already started it, but cells control chemical reactions, right? Like that is, I mean, that's almost like totally amazing. Like if you kind of step back and think about it, like how does that even work? And of course, cells are super, super small. And, chemistry, when it gets out of control, I mean, forest fires and explosions and stuff. And yet cells can control chemistry. So that's like totally amazing. Unit 2 gets more into the calculations. So really preparing you for Chem 20. Or if you're going to write, say, a JET exam or something, calculations on how much exactly, right? So exactly how much we need for a chemical reaction. Again, write this down with me for Chem RX, just kind of shorthand. If you think about it, we're doing a chemical reaction and we don't want to waste stuff. Stuff is expensive, stuff is dangerous. It's not guesswork. I mean, who in their right mind anyway cooks by guesswork, right? So chemistry and cooking is very related, at least good cooking, or especially good baking. If you're going to be a good baker, you don't just, well, we're going to get some eggs and maybe some salt and some sugar and some eggs and to see what happens. No, you follow a recipe. It's exact because you want to have a controlled chemical reaction. Ken, propane and frostbite, yeah, dangerous. Well, that's not quite a chemical. Interesting, a dangerous chemical. Well, propane is often going to be, like it would because it's under high pressure, it basically can end up damaging some of your skin cells if it comes out and your hands are too close to it. So it's definitely not safe. Last part here, physics. Again, later in November, so not right away, but basically energy. And of course, we're talking about energy. If we're talking about life, we're talking about energy. If we're talking about chemistry, we're talking about energy. a lot of this is that we're going to be looking at is energy. So it's calculations. So there's some mathematics here, but you know, math is the language of the universe. Math describes the universe, which is also amazing. Like that's just amazing. Energy required to move objects. You know, if I'm going to take this object here and it says it's 5 pounds, which is about 1.7, I think, kilograms. Basically, how much energy do I need to move 1.7 kilograms? And let's say I move it straight up 1 meter. And if you think about it, if it's a meter up, and don't really think about this too carefully, but lift this in a meter up in your mind and drop it on your toe, that's going to hurt a lot more than if it's just, you know, a couple centimeters. If it's just 2 centimeters off the ground, well, that doesn't take much energy, right? So it's a lot of common sense, and that's what science is, but then the specifics, right? And it's getting those specifics right. That's critical to all science, whether it's physics, chemistry, whether it's biology. Knowing in general what we're talking about. Okay, generally, okay, yeah, okay, I get it, Phil. Life has cells. Okay, that's great. But what about the specifics of that, right? How do cells themselves work? Is there only one kind of cell? And obviously not. Also, we'll be looking at motion of objects. Something really cool called vectors, but that's not for today. I'm going to switch my slides shortly. When I do have these live classes, and again, they're only a couple times a week, if I'm going too quick, definitely let me know. Just, you know, even in the text chat, you would just go something like that, a W, which is wait. But yeah, I'm going to switch the slide here in probably about 10 seconds. But this gives you a good overview of the whole course, chemistry, biology, and physics. We'll start with the biology, and yes, unit 4 or 5, and then we'll do 1 and 2 in chemistry, and oh yeah, and then this is unit, obviously, 3 in the physics. Look at that, look at that mathematics. Okay, let's go here. Hit save. Just a little bit about me. Yeah, my hometown's that's in Alberta. I've got actually a phys ed degree and ed degree, and then I got a master's of ed. What do I enjoy? Family time, camping, running, biking, swimming, and that's just a picture of me and my family. And anybody know where this is at? Just in the text chat, if you know where this picture's taken, or if you want to try to guess where you think this picture's taken. Also allows me to make sure you can see the picture that I am showing. So, because if you say, looks like the moon, that's not the moon. Okay, I'm going to pick on someone. Chloe, where do you think this picture's taken? I'm also making sure all the microphones and everything work. And you can even turn on your mic and say, I'm not sure. But Chloe, where do you think this picture's taken?
This is just a wild guess. Yeah. But Fort Edmonton Park?
Very close. It's a place like Fort Edmonton Park. And yeah, hello, I let in a new student. I think it's Aubrey. Hi, Aubrey. Just definitely let me know if I got your name right, plus if you can hear me. It's somewhere in California. It's fun, like Fort Edmonton Park. And one of the mascots, he's got these ears, and its name starts with a D, and so it's a blank land.
Disneyland.
Exactly. This is a petrified rock that they have. So actually, this is a classic place. I didn't know this until after that people get their pictures taken at, because it's been at the park since the park opened. Again, is this a course in Disneyland history? It's just interesting. But they've had it there since 1955, since the park has opened. And hey, no worries. And I am recording, just so you know. And ultimately, Petrified Rock is what happens. There's Cleo the cat. is what happens when something living, particularly plant material, and of course large trees, when they fossilize, and essentially the plant cells inside of them get replaced with minerals. And petrified wood is actually the provincial rock, that is the rock of Alberta. So there you go, petrified wood. A little bit of chemistry there, and so that's a little bit about me. Let's get into looking at the course here, and what you all have. I'm pretty sure everybody here has done the biology welcome assignment. Watch my welcome video. So watch a welcome video. Do the welcome assignment. Readings, videos, mini quizzes. Page 1 to 8. Okay, so what is Flintstone talking about here? Okay, so let's pull up the course. So let me go to right here. Hi, Cleo. Why don't you just come over here and, you don't have to meow so much, right? Okay, so that's the welcome video, which if you haven't watched, definitely watch it. I think it's about 6 minutes long. This is the link to the session today. There's our course outline. Feel free to take a look at it, but ultimately, so assignments, labs, quizzes, 25% of your mark. There's a project, and I'll just describe that in the next few lectures that we do, so don't worry about that just yet. Unit exams and final exam, 25%. The final will be bio, chem, physics. Yes, hello, Cleo. I have to pay attention to you. I know, you're so important. There's our link to our live class. So our first official live class is Thursday. So this is kind of an extra one that I added because, the course just started. And I thought we would have class on Monday, but there was orientation. So this is kind of, in a sense, what our first class would have been yesterday. Here's your lessons. There's your assignments. We've tried to set this up. I've tried to set this up pretty straightforward, that basically you just kind of go in order. If this says due September 3rd, well, that's when it closes. Really, you want to get it done today at the latest. And the same with the parts of a cell. Opens tonight at midnight tomorrow. I'd get this done tomorrow. And the readings that you're going to want to be doing are right here if we click on that. So let's show you that. Right here. And basically, we have a little online textbook, essentially. And so the unit plan, which I got you to print, and definitely make sure you've got this unit plan printed. The unit plan will say, okay, read page 1 to 3. Well, that's what we're talking about right here. Now, sometimes these don't perfectly line up because we were doing all kinds of editing to make it work in a website, blah, blah, blah. So, you sometimes might be reading and I think I need to read another page. And, so I might be a page out here or there, and sorry for that. We also have the textbook. Now, you don't have to have it because we put it inside of the course. And where is that? Right, scroll all the way down. There we go. Textbook for Science 10. Science 10 textbook. Now, you don't need it. We've provided everything you need in here, but some students like to read the textbook, and there's nothing wrong with that. And ultimately, we're doing chapter 7 right now. So that's why you've got, when you look at the unit plan, page or TXT 272, 276. So where you need to be at right now, you need to have read through pages 1 to 8. So there's page 1, and then let's go to the next page here. Oh, there's a little quiz here. What's all life made up of? Pretty sure that's the answer. Look at that. Good gosh, I did good. So there's like little mini quizzes. Oh, good. Another mini quiz for me. What does photosynthesis produce? Okay, let me ask this leaf here. Hello, what do you make? I make, but your lips are moving. Yeah, I'm speaking for the leaf. I make glucose and oxygen. Okay, thank you. From CO2 and water. Amazing. You control chemistry. Okay, continue. What is the name of the organelle inside the photosynthesis? That's the chloroplast. And where would you get those answers from reading that first page, literally? Okay, what gas do we need to breathe in Do you need to breathe in? I got to breathe in oxygen, dude. I'm breathing out CO2. And there is the next page. So yeah, so little quizzes throughout just to make sure you're picking up what we're talking about, and then a teaching video on cell organelles. But I'm going to go over a bit on cell organelles today. We'll see where we get. I do want to wrap this up in 30 minutes so that you've just had kind of a quick intro. Okay, so the course. All right, so you've kind of seen the course here. I mean, basically, you've got everything you need. You just want to get going. Start here. I think most of you here have watched that already. The welcome assignment. Today is August 31st. Definitely get it done today. It's going to close by September 3rd, but get it done today at the latest, ideally anyway. And then parts of a cell. This will open tomorrow. And so, yeah, that's the basics. As part of doing the welcome assignment, I asked you to print this. It's going to be really helpful. It's got some key information summarized in terms of kind of more visual learning. And so it doesn't hurt to have this, doesn't hurt to maybe copy some of this stuff down again too. And you show it, you'll see that it's got both units of the bio, the first unit being on basically cells, and the second unit being on, yep, our friend here, the plant. Does anyone want to give a name to this plant? Just, should give it a name. So I don't know if you want to add that in the text chat so I can refer to this plant by its name that you will have given it. Think about it. It might be important to us that the plant have a nice name, because right now it's looking for a name. There we go. Robert. That's perfect. Named after Robert Hooke. Robert Hooke was the first to see that we know of, probably the Greeks and probably the Mayans as well, actually, just because the Mayans had incredible technology on this continent. But as far as we know, Robert Hooke was the first to see, and then he named cells. That's where the name comes from. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if the Greeks and even the Mayans had that kind of technology, because they were just sort of brilliant people and an incredible society. All right, so we've kind of got a bit of a intro to the course, where to get started. Ultimately, just get started. Gonna flip my slide right here. So again, if you have any questions, obviously, just let me know. Like, hey, what's the circumference of the Earth? It could be. Never know. You might want to know that. I doubt you do. There we go. That's the right slide. It's 24,000 miles or 40,000 kilometers, in case you need to know. Okay, so yeah, we looked at the course Moodle. I mean, everything's in Moodle. Moodle. All the assignments. If you really need to get a hold of me, just send me an email is actually the best way to get a hold of me. But beyond that, just keep plugging away in Moodle. So living things, life. How does life work? Just kind of ponder that for a moment. Think about it. What makes, and there's something in common between, this Robert here, this plant, and then this is a different kind of a plant, the tomato plant that made this, and of course me, and the cat, she took off because I couldn't give her enough attention. And all living things have this in common. And so let's get started. Yeah, they're made up of cells. Exactly. You got her. 100%. I appreciate that. Putting that in a text chat lets me know what I'm laying down is coming through. But yeah, let's get started. A little lecture here. Biology, Unit 4, life and cells. We need to understand that all living things are made up of cells. And what do cells do? So let's write this down. I'm going to zoom. I'm just going to move down a little bit. So I'll get a little bit more. Move down. Here you go. Attaboy. Cells. Here's what cells do. Cells, blank, chemistry. I mentioned this. Write it down. Fill in that blank there. Yeah, exactly. Control it. Now, again, that is actually quite mind-boggling. And it's easy to see how the ancients, who were very scientifically minded and did want to know how things worked because it was critical for survival, but still would attribute whatever godlike powers to all living things and to us and to life itself, because it was realized very long time ago by our ancestors that stuff like rocks and water, while interesting and stuff, are nothing compared to living things. And the fact that life can control chemistry, and you are controlling a fire right now inside your body. It's called cellular respiration. And it's actually much warmer than this little fire here, but it's just being controlled. Now, I said warmer, but I meant to say has more energy than this little fire right here. But our body controls that, and specifically our cells. And of course, specifically again, mitochondria inside of our cell. In fact, right there, and of course this isn't, is that a real animal cell? Well, that's a great model of an animal cell. And without the mitochondria, you don't have a motor to burn the fuel to then do stuff, right? Think about how a car works. It's going to burn fuel for what purpose? Well, in Canada, to keep us alive and from freezing to death in our cars. But also, it's to move the car forward, so that the wheels roll for transportation. So similar, that's an analogy, right? I mean, we're surrounded by systems. We're surrounded by things, our cell phones, all of these things are made up of parts. Well, the same thing with living things. Living things are made up of parts, right? Some of the big parts that we're made up of, our heart, our skin, those are organs, our lungs, but they themselves are made up of tissues. Okay, so you got kind of organ made up of tissues. And of course, even a muscle is not just one kind of muscle tissue, right? And there's not just muscle tissue in a muscle. There's going to be tendon tissue. There's going to be ligament tissue related to where the muscle would be. Actually, ligaments go bone to bone. So tendon is going to be muscle to bone. Anyway, the point being is that those are all parts of a system, and you're going to understand or learn any science, you need to start with the general understanding. Okay, all life is made up of cells, but yeah, okay, so what are cells made up of? But then how do they work? Well, they're organized. And I'm just going to let one of your classmates in. Cells are organized into tissues, and then those tissues work together to form an organ, and then those organs work together in organ systems, and you get multiple organ systems to make whatever the organism is. Even a plant, and I know my video screen's kind of small, but you can see the leaves on top, the stems, and then the roots. So cells specialize, right? Again, some of these concepts, we're more or less studying actually in a couple of weeks, but it's all interrelated, and it's all stuff that we know. And yeah, we're just kind of taking some notes as we go here about cells in our first unit. They control chemistry. For example, the leaf controls this chemical reaction, carbon dioxide. So you need to know how to say that word and how to write the formula for that. Carbon dioxide is going to combine with water. So writing this out, and again, make sure you've got a notebook. You definitely need a dedicated notebook for this course. When we're learning, our brain absolutely needs us to listen. Our brain needs us to also be writing things down. It's great in a movie and stuff to watch it, but movies are for fun. Class, and class is fun too, but in a different way, right? Like you need to be writing stuff down. Now, Ken, if you've got a question, feel free. Yeah, take the mic and let me know, and or pop it in the text chat. So we're going to combine carbon dioxide and water. So these two things, H2O, liquid, right? Always got to have your state of matter. And I mean, this isn't magic, but it's almost like magic, because like this is unbelievable. This is an odorless, colorless gas. We all know what water is. It's a colorless. It's also technically tasteless, although it tastes like water. So there you go. But ultimately, this glucose. Now, more than just glucose. But glucose is the basic molecule that actually makes up cellulose. Cellulose, plant material, wood, is actually when you put a bunch of glucose molecules together, again, with cells controlling chemistry, doing some modifications to that basic glucose molecule, can turn it into cellulose. It's totally amazing. Like, it's totally unbelievable practically, but hey, science, man. Here's the other great thing, and yeah,
Bill?
go ahead. Oh, Kelly, yeah, go ahead.
Hey, sorry, I was waiting for a pause to jump in there. So, okay, this is not really clear for me. I put these formulas in my notes, this one and the one for photosynthesis. Why is there gas, liquid, and solid there? Is it not self-explanatory? Why does that need to be there?
Okay, so and you'll find that in a science course. I'll feel that sometimes too. Like, well, everybody knows it. I mean, water is a liquid. It's just being very exact. And so ultimately, especially in a science course or whatever, if it's an English course. Well, why do the cat ran? Well, why do I have to write it like that, like with a capital, and then why do I need to put a period there? Well, it's just what we do. But
okay, so always it should have the state of the matter.
Exactly. Yeah. And now in some cases, I mean, we might say, I don't know, P4O7. Okay. What's, am I supposed to know the state of matter of P4O7, Phil? No, there'll be certain ones that we would have to give you. If we don't give you, you would just go, well, I don't know. So I'll leave it blank. But, in general, and again, this is chemistry, so it's a month from now, but it's okay to be asking about it because chemistry is just so cool, and living things control chemistry. Ultimately, there's going to be certain ones where you're gonna learn. They're called ionic compounds. Here's one. This is familiar. Oh, table salt. All ionic compounds, all of them are solid. All of them. Period. Cool, right? Like, this is cool stuff. So it's kind of cool, but it communicates. If we put this, if I wrote this, or if you read this, now it can exist as a liquid. What this would mean is that we were in a very, very hot oven of some kind with about, I don't know, about 1100 degrees Celsius. So it will tell you something if you see the state of matter. If we saw this, we would go, ooh, we're in a volcano. So yeah, does that help a little bit, Kelly?
It does. The second part of that question is, I missed, like, CO2 is, and H2O I know, but, okay, how is this, okay, this is cellular respiration, right?
This is photosynthesis.
Right? Oh, that was photosynthesis.
But we'll do this in reverse. So this is photosynthesis because it's a leaf. And this is its main game for life on Earth. Again, thank you, plants, for making glucose. I love it. And for making oxygen. I love it too, but I'd be dead without it. But if we reverse this, O2, C6H12O6, that's cellular respiration. That's what your mitochondria, they take this reaction and reverse it. And this is why you got to eat. If there's one thing I'm going to tell you today, everybody, you got to eat and you got to breathe. Oh, that's two things. You got to eat for glucose. Now, there's more than just that. Oh, do I only need glucose? I can't wait to have my bowl full of sugar. But glucose is pretty important. And I think we all know we got to breathe. And ultimately, who are we eating and breathing for? Who? Is it for my teeth? Is it for my intestines? It's for ourselves. That's who we serve. That's our master. Of course, I don't know, because I'm conscious. I'm pretty sure I'm in charge of this operation here. But that's who you eat and breathe for. Now tell me more, Kelly. How's this helping out your understanding of yeah, it's kind of almost a bit of gibberish, the CO2, H2O, C6H12, all this stuff. How's this helping?
Okay, well, I barely know enough to ask an intelligent question. So there you go. The more you say, the better. And I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And the more that you read this, the more that you think about it. I mean, ultimately, this single reaction, now obviously living things do way more than a single reaction, Like, I mean, somehow the color red, so this must be drawing iron out of the plant, must be drawing iron out of the soil, right? So there's more than just this single reaction, but this single reaction is so important and helps us understand all other chemical reactions in a sense. And so the leaf does photosynthesis, and so you, and also a plant, so plants also do this one called cellular respiration, because do plants need energy? Ultimately, just a quick yes or no in the text chat for everybody. Yes or no, do plants need energy? That's just, I want to know either yes or no. Do plants need energy? That's my basic question to everybody. So I'm seeing a yes from Kelly. Thanks, Kelly. Let's get a few more votes, because that's how science works. It works by voting. I don't think so, Phil. I don't think voting is involved with science. Okay, Miriam says yes. Couple more votes. So far, it's 100%. And Aubrey, absolutely. Plants need energy. So they'll be doing something called cellular respiration, which is, hey, breathing. The word respiration means breathing. Breathing for who? Who are you breathing for? Right there. Who do we do everything for? Oh man, it's the cells. The cells are in charge. Cellular respiration right here. And our cells control this chemistry and obviously all kinds of other chemical reactions. So we take in, we eat sugar, we breathe oxygen, and we breathe out CO2 gas and get a little excess water, which, you know, if we have too much water, we pee it out. It comes out through our urine. If there's too much water in our body, our kidneys help balance the water. But you will notice these are the same chemical reactions, just written in a different direction. This chemical reaction to work right here, photosynthesis, needs this thing. It's in the sky, at least we see it in the sky. And what the heck am I drawing? It kind of comes up every morning, sort of goes across the sky, or maybe the Earth is actually moving, or does it move? I don't know. But this big thing that comes up in the sky, yeah, sunlight, the sun. So this needs energy going into it, which means it's an endothermic reaction. So it needs energy constantly pumped into it. Versus this reaction right here, well, you all know this because you're alive. I assume everyone in the class is currently alive and will stay that way for the duration of the course. And beyond, actually. So definitely much further beyond. This reaction, you all know that this reaction also releases this in a controlled fashion because your cells are controlling that chemistry. And a lot of the heat is just released. It's almost, we call it waste heat, but some of the energy is recaptured and used to recharge our ATP. Now that's a fancy thing that Phil just said. Yeah, but your cell phone, if you try to use the cell phone for 5 days straight, my cell phone doesn't work anymore. Do you have any suggestions for me? I've been using my cell phone for 5 days straight and it doesn't work anymore. Does anyone have a suggestion for me? What I should do? I've literally been using it and it just stopped working. Should I cry or write a letter to someone? Or should I plug it in and charge it? You're doing that right now. Aubrey, Chloe, and the iPhone 13, yeah, nice. We are recharging our ATP. Ooh, what's that? Just do this. Here we go. You just used lots of ATP. Here, just do this. Think. Just do this. I don't know. Just live. Cells have some high energy compound that they break down. Okay. Think about what our cars use, high energy compound, gas, right? Gas is pretty high energy compound. I do not have any gas with me. If I did, would this at all be safe? This is not gas, and I would never do this, by the way. But if this was gas, would this at all be safe? No, right? High energy compound, okay? ATP is another high energy compound. Well, it's one life uses. Not only you, bacteria, all living things. all living things, because all living things are made up of cells, and cells all control chemistry, ultimately in the exact same way. That's kind of cool, right? Like that's totally cool there, what happens. So we're just going to allow, we're just going to write that also we recharge our ATP. Wow, that's so cool. And it's just like your cell phone. It can be recharged and then used up. That is exactly why, and there's other reasons too, but if you run full speed, so I don't know if any of you lately have been charged by a giant alligator, hopefully not, but if you have, you were probably running full speed because you're still here, so the alligator didn't catch you. So you're running full speed. And by the way, I'm not sure what to do when confronted by an alligator. I'm not sure if you should run, but anyway, luckily there's no alligators around here. Very luckily. If you run full speed, eventually what happens, right? Like you fall over basically, right? Your legs, like they just basically stop working. And because yeah, you need to recharge. You're recharging your ATP. You're plugging your cell phone in. You're the cell phone. I'm a cell phone because you're made up of cells. I don't know. There we go. That is that a joke? I don't know. Like it's such a bad joke. I don't think it is a joke, but you never know. Could be classified as such. All right. How do cells control chemistry? How on earth does this work? Or how do even cells work? Okay. Let's write this down. Because all life's made up of cells. How do cells even work? Okay, if you're going to want to understand how a clock or a car works, you take it apart. So if we take cells apart, we see things called cell organelles. And that's what's really critical to understand. So let's take a look at this real quick here. Cell organelles. And what a cell is actually like, because yeah, they're super tiny. I should mention how tiny they are. And just admitting another one of your classmates here. Afa, hi Afa, yeah, how are you? Just let me know if you can hear me. And you'll definitely want to watch the recording just from the little previous part. We're just talking about how living things work. All living things, maybe people could put it in the text chat. All living things are made up of and work because of one little word, starts with a C and it has an E. Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Chloe. I do appreciate that. Okay. So, but cells themselves, yeah, one or more. Well, unless you're single cell. Now, I don't think there's any single cell organisms in the class because you couldn't type, right? Like if one of you, I'd be really surprised if one of you was like in a single celled amoeba here in class, because I mean, would you even log in? But I could be surprised. A single cell classmate, they would have really small assignments, I guess. I don't know, it'd be different. Okay, so a cell is a complex system, right? And yeah, cars are complex. A cell is more complex than a car. And a cell, I'm not going to do it because I barely have any hair left. A single cell, you know how big a single human hair is? We can just see a human hair. I mean, some people have really good vision, but you know, it's still, they're pretty small, right? A human hair. A cell, a skin cell, a human skin cell, about 10 of them could fit across a hair. So you really can't see a cell. They're quite small. And then inside of them is this complex system, right? So a nucleus in the center. Wow. So the plan based, now they call it the brain here. I mean, you could think of that, but really it's a plan. And in a sense, the DNA, that plan, that's all it is a plan. They got the workers out here, right? You got the workers, and you can see them doing all kinds of important things. Cell membrane, super important, right? For protecting the cell. It's got to get rid of waste. So highly complicated, all these cell organelles working together. So let's just write down this simple little sentence here. Cell is like a city. So as an analogy, right? Learning by analogy, right? So, you know, we say that, you know, I don't know, the sun is like a light. Well, that's a light above my head. The sun and that light above my head are pretty different, but I guess they're similar. They both give off light. So cell is like a city. It's a complex system. Now, you're in this science course, but any science course you take, especially biology ones, but even, you know, physics and chemistry, is about learning how systems work. Because how else could we understand anything, right? Like we have to look at not only at a moose and kind of follow it around the woods, but, you know, we have to find a dead one and do an autopsy and see what's inside of the moose. And, you know, we don't go out and kill one or whatever, but you know what I mean, right? Like to actually understand things. Yeah, washroom, exactly. So analogy. So what Ken just did there, that your brain loves to learn that way. It loves to basically take what it already knows. So there's no expectation that you're a car expert, but, you know, we know that cars have motors. Like even those of us who know very little about cars know they have a motor, know that we put gas in them, know that they, you know, that they have a job to do. They move around, right? So, and some cars are big, like trucks, and so they're specialized cars, right? So there's a lot of analogy between a cell and a car, or cell and a city. And in fact, a cell is probably even more complex than a whole city, which is also like just because they're so small. And ultimately inside of them, we have these things called organelles, and each of these has a specific job. So to understand and learn this, make sure you know, obviously the name of the organelle, what its job is, but, you know, make an analogy. You know, if it's the nucleus, and that's not shown here actually in this little example here, but if it's the nucleus, that's where the DNA is, that's where the plan is. So it's the plan room. It's the plan room. I think I said that, but I wanted to say it twice. Okay, so cell, organelles. Oh yeah, let's add that right here. Works because of cell organelles. Again, today, second day into the course, you should be in page 8 in some of the readings, and I'll just quickly grab those again here just so we're sort of clear what Flintstone's talking about. So right in the course, there's these readings. This is page 2. You actually want to be about page 8. So if you have some catching up to do, that's okay. It won't take you too long, but you want to read through, and there's also videos and there's little practice quizzes inside of this as well that you want to be getting done. And ultimately, if you're up to page 8 or close to that, some of this is a review. You're going, yeah, I read some of this stuff already. Over-prepared is okay, and that is definitely good, and that's what we like to hear, because, you know, you want to have that feeling of, yeah, this is some of the stuff straightforward, or I know some of this, or I've been doing my reading already. Let's go here. Right here, I believe, is where I want to go. Yeah. Okay. You are a multicellular organism. Okay, your cells, any one of your cells is actually very similar to some of the single-celled organisms, specifically a thing called a paramecium. And just stop and ponder that for a second. That if we took any one of your random cells and put it underneath a microscope and took a single-celled paramecium and put it beside, and we zoomed in on the cell, your cell, and the paramecium cell, we would notice, hey, they're pretty similar. And again, life is life. Life comes from life. Life doesn't somehow mysteriously come out of rocks, although if you move the movie back all the way back about 3.78 billion years ago, there are questions. Well, okay, so where did life exactly, how did it start? But ultimately it started from chemistry and some complex chemistry. But yeah, luckily we don't need to worry about that today. We just need to kind of stop for a moment and go, yeah, you know, my cells, especially your cells and a rabbit cell, or your cells and a cat cell, they're going to be indistinguishable. Basically, unless we look at the DNA, unless we get into the nucleus and actually sequence the DNA, then we know for sure, okay, that's a human. Okay, that's a rabbit. Okay, that is a paramecium. We found a paramecium. Surprise, surprise. Okay, let's do a little drawing together. Again, make sure you've got a notebook for the course and play along with me here. This is my question for you. How would you make life work? If you were in charge, okay, so I'm God or I'm a God? Well, just imagine, right? What if you were in charge? Like, you could be in charge of making cars work. That could be one of the jobs, but the job is, oh, you have to make life work. Okay, well, what are some of the parameters? Well, there needs to be, these big things that run around, and there needs to be little things, and there needs to be a way for them to capture energy, because, without energy, nothing exists. So, we're going to need some of them maybe to be, basically these ones, their job is to be eaten, right? I mean, plants have their own little existence, but ultimately they do have a job, literally, practically, and the job is to be eaten by everything else. Thank you, plant, because without you, I don't exist. So, but how would we make all this stuff work? Well, first of all, cells is a really good design because it allows you to have, you can have single-celled organisms, obviously, right? If we have this thing called cells, but they can work together and they can build these complex multicellular organisms. They can build us and elephants and whales and cats and dogs and all kinds of plants and beetles and all those complicated things. All right, so there's your cell. So that's the first thing. Okay, so we're going to use cells. I'm supposed to be in charge of making life work. Okay, first of all, I'm going to need a thing called cells. Okay, how are you going to make cells work? Well, first of all, you're going to have a central place, and you're going to have this. And ultimately, this is just a plan, and it's got to be protected. Do you think the plan to build you and to build your neurons is important? So it's got to be protected. That plan is protected in the nucleus, and it's a plan to build proteins. Hair, skin, nails, hormones, structures. So structures like hair, skin. So collagen is the protein in our skin, and there's not just one kind of collagen. And some people's collagen would be stiffer than others, and some people's collagen would be softer. But ultimately, it's all the same, basically, structure. Collagen, it's a protein. Keratin is the protein in our hair and our nails, and those are just two proteins. You have about 18,000 different proteins that, like, you're way more complicated than a car. I think you knew that. And so how do all those proteins get built? The plan. There's a plan. And then right here, again, do this drawing with me. This is called the Endoplasmic Reticulum. Oh, that's such a neat name. Thank you for telling me. That is so cool. And right on it are these little tiny things called ribosomes, and that is a protein factory. They build the protein. They're the worker. Oh, that is cool. That is so cool. So just put an arrow. You should have this exact drawing. Your brain needs drawings, by the way. Don't have to be super, super great, but it loves drawings. Your brain loves to learn by drawings. Okay, we got a cell membrane. We got a nucleus here. We got the DNA. We got a plan. And we got the builder. Hey, this is cool. Is there anything major that we're missing? Or no, Phil, we're done. We made life. We're good. We need a cell wall, and we need a plan, and we just need to build protein. Is there anything majorly important that we're missing for making life work? Exactly. The mitochondria, the powerhouse. You gotta have a powerhouse. I'm going to go a little long, but I will wrap up, I think, in 3 minutes. So they got lots of surface area. You all have made a campfire, and you don't expect to grab a gigantic tree and light it on fire, right? Or even if you haven't made a campfire, you kind of know that if you saw me trying to light a tree on fire, and then you said, Phil, what are you doing? And, oh, we're having a campfire, and I have a giant tree, and I'm just trying to light it on fire. You would go, Phil, you need to cut the tree up into smaller bits. It's called kindling. You need to have surface area. For chemistry, you need to have surface area. This mitochondria has tons of surface area. It's the powerhouse. It is burning sugar with, breathe it in, oxygen. Now, there's more than just this, but these are the basics, and you need to learn all the other cell organelles. But your cell membrane, and we're going to learn a lot about it, especially chapter 8, or the second part of this, basically in about a week from today, how the cell membrane works. Okay, all life, write this down. All life is made of cells. If someone says, oh, I found a living thing, you know it's made of cells. If you know it's made of cells, it's got DNA. Then you're just going to want to know, how many cell organelles does this thing have? Because really, really simple things like bacteria have less cell organelles. So that'll, be something more specific you'll want to ask, like if we put you on a mission to Mars or something. Is that happening? All life is made of cells. Don't go to Mars. It'll be dangerous. It's a really bad idea, actually. It's cool. I think Elon Musk, he's got a cool idea, but it's baloney. It's not going to be. Well, he might send a small crew to Mars. Probably half of them will die. Poor people. They'll volunteer. I don't know how you can volunteer for your own death, though. It's kind of a thing. Anyway, back to this, what we're learning right now. Cells are, this is important, the basic functional unit. Oh, that's interesting. Now, what that means is you can break things down. Okay, you got fill and then organs. So not that I want this to happen, but my heart could be transplanted. I'd obviously be brain dead or something. My heart would be transplanted into somebody else. That can happen, or my lungs or whatever. And you can even take tissues. You can take my skin cells and then grow new skin. Like I get a terrible burn, we can take tissues and grow. So the smallest that we can go is down to a cell. If you break a cell apart, if you try to, oh, I want to get some ribosomes out of here, and I want to have a protein factory, that won't work independently. This is the smallest, independent, most basic functional unit of all living things, is the cell. If someone tells you we found a new living thing or whatever, some kind of living thing, it'll be made of cells. Even if it's life on Mars, it'll have cells. It has to. Like I'll be surprised if there's some kind of different thing, and even if it's got a different name, it'll be like, well, that's a cell. Like, it's got a membrane and it's small. So all life is made of cells. Cells are the basic functional unit. Cells come from, now you finish that. Where do cells come from? There's all these cells that make up this leaf, and this leaf was small and it grew bigger and bigger and bigger, and obviously it got more and more leaf cells. So where did those cells come from? Because at one point this leaf was, in fact, this leaf was not even on the stem, right? There was just this stem, and then the leaf was little and it got bigger and bigger and bigger. Cells come from, they come from cells. Good try, absolutely, and appreciate that. And ultimately, again, this goes back to the basic functional unit. The organelles, the cell makes its own organelles. Like before a cell divides, and ultimately, this is basically saying cells divide, which, okay, yeah, but it's important. It's important because it helps us answer, well, where did Phil come from? Well, his parents. Where did his parents, where does life comes from life? Cells come from cells. If you run the movie backwards, all life came from a long time ago, just a single-celled organism. The first living thing, like a long time ago, was just a single-celled organism. And, eventually over time and responding to environmental change and adapting, because DNA, the plan, here's the cool thing about this plan is it mutates, right? And that's critical. If this plan didn't mutate, then life would never change, and then life would just die out because there'd be a big drought or whatever, and there'd be a few little cells bubbling away in a pond, and then the pond would dry out, and then life would be over and be a really boring movie. But luckily, the movie is exciting that we've had. Okay, my brain thought of cells dividing, and I didn't think it was that easy. Yeah, right on. Good job, Tanis. Tell your brain, good job. Say, look your brain in the mirror. Say, good job, brain. The creation and God are the ones that made all of these cells. Yeah, well, some people, yeah, I mean, it's ultimately, and of course, human beings, and especially ancient human beings, but all human beings, we'll want to know where stuff came from, like what's the very beginning and what started it. And science doesn't have all the answers, but we know a lot of the details. Now, I was only going to go to 2:15. It's 2:23. We can certainly continue. What I want to do is probably stop the recording because this is a basic introduction to the course. Hello, hi, this is Phil. If you need anything, send me an email. Mainly get in, do the assignments, watch the videos, the teaching videos. This one's going to be posted for people to watch as well, so I don't want it to be too long. It's an hour, but that's okay. And so I'm going to stop the video, but I'm still going to hang out with you guys here. If you have any questions, even if you just want to say, hey, thanks and have a good day, Phil, bye-bye, is all good. But I'm going to stop the video. So take care if you're watching this, and just keep working away at the plan. And literally, there's assignments, quizzes, things to do every day. So work away in a course. There's going to be something to do every day, and do that for your brain, because your brain needs to look at stuff to learn it, and your brain will start to really like this stuff because your brain is learning why your brain exists. So it's always good for the brain. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording. Yep.